What's going on, everyone? It's your boy, Ernest Dove, resident prospect hugger of all things internet for the Mets minor league system. I wanted to do a quick video talking about MLB Pipeline's top 30 prospects on the Mets. Their list came out. One of my favorite things, obviously, as a junkie of minor leagues. I wanted to give and maybe share a few thoughts on all the players and the rankings. Let me just go from, I guess, from 30 to 1, maybe make it interesting in my little YouTube channel. Starting with them ranking Rylan Thomas, the outfielder, number 30 in the Mets system. Such an interesting guy for me. Watching him, to me, it's probably an awful comp, but I see the lefty swing, and it kind of looks to me like some kind of Luis Guillorme type player. He had one of those amazing type seasons. Starts out in low A, hits 303. Goes to high A, goes to 341 batting average. They bump him up to double A, and he hits 353. Guy's batting average goes up as he gets higher up the systems. He ended the season overall with more walks than strikeouts. Such an interesting guy. Not a lot of power. That's why I'm wondering. I mean, defensively, I don't know about being an outfield version of Luis Guillorme, but I love the idea of Rylan Thomas. I love the idea of seeing what he can do at the AAA level. To see at that final level, can he make it? Number 29, they ranked Saul Garcia. He's one of those guys, a 20-year-old, talked about a little bit last year during the season. The main information I got on Saul Garcia talking with coaches, they basically just said he has real stuff. Maybe some of the obvious for a 20-year-old, consistency and command. Consistency and command. Make sure the walks don't pile up in bursts. You don't want to have those spurts of walks in bad situations. When he gets hot, he gets hot. Overall, that's one of those things that's going to turn you into a big-time prospect or maybe fall off a little bit. So 20 years old, long way to go. But I do like Saul Garcia a lot. Number 28, they have Yoander Suarez. You know I've been talking about him a lot for a while. One of those guys who was highly ranked, probably ranked in the 20-ish a couple of years ago before his Tommy John surgery. And since then, he's been on the way back. Now he's going to be another year healthy. I did hear that he was pretty filthy in minor league camp before spring started. Now spring is happening. I'm excited to see what he can do during the minor league season because, again, he's one of those really, really hot arms. I know MLB Pipeline, they're trying to think, can his stuff play as a starter? Might he go into the bullpen? It's a pretty interesting question to ask. Again, he's still young, but when you miss a couple of years of development, that kind of messes with things a little. So I'm curious what the Mets or what route they want to go with him in 2024. Let's see where he is in the upper levels. Are they going to continue to have him in a rotation? The rotations are getting pretty full right now with the AA, AAA levels, with some of the veterans and the Lucchese's and the Butos. Things are going to trickle down, so I'm pretty fascinated to see who's repeating a level, who's going up a level, who's going to be a starter or a reliever, but I'm still a big fan of Yoander Suarez, so please keep an eye on him. One of the wild cards I can't really say much about. At number 27, they have Ramon Gomez. One of those guys, he's now 22 years old. He's been able to hit 100 miles per hour, but Tommy John surgery, so I'm not really sure on the time frame projections. Hopefully 2024 at some point he makes his return. But when you have guys having the surgery, it kind of goes with the territory of wondering, what do we do now? What is he going to become? But again, he's still only 22 years old, so let's see what happens with him for the season as a whole, at least toward the end of the year. Number 26, Nick Morabito. One of the younger guys. He's now 20 years old. Had a pretty good, solid overall season, mostly in FCL, and ending the season with the St. Lucie Mets last year. Overall, he hit 306 with a 421 OBP combined between the two levels. He started off a little slow to begin the year, and I started asking a couple of coaches, hey, what are your thoughts on this guy? Such highly ranked. What do you think of him? And they were basically saying, hey, he's a work in progress. He's just kind of learning. And then he began to take off. So obviously those coaches know what they're doing. They told me to not sweat it, the early kind of June swoon of him that he had. They do like his talent. He did basically play a little bit all around the outfield and a little bit at second base. So some of those versatile guys, I'm curious to see so many guys in the lower levels being bunched up together. I'm curious where a guy like Nick Morabito is going to play position-wise. Not really sure if he's going to bounce around infield, outfield all year. Probably a good idea anyway in the system. So keep an eye out for him. Number 25, Boston Barrow. He's the guy I posted about a few weeks ago when I was told by coaches during minor league camp, this kid has packed on up to 30 pounds since the draft. So he's bulked up a lot since joining the Mets organization. He's a guy that's been playing all around the infield, at least very briefly when he had some cups of coffee in pro baseball last year after the draft, playing a little bit of shortstop, second base, and third base. Curious to see again, like with Morabito, again, now I'm saying the similar-ish guys as far as the levels, age. Not really sure where Boston Barrow is going to play, but again, he bulked up since the draft. I was hearing about him hitting a lot of lasers now, putting more authority, the old term barreling up. That's what he was doing in minor league camp. So I'm definitely keeping an eye on him throughout the year as well. Because again, being ranked 25, this type of talent, depending on how he does position-wise, defensively, showing some speed, if the power comes now from the added bulk, that's something that can kind of soar him up the prospect rankings at the end of this coming year. So keep an eye out for him. Number 24, Nate Lavender. Well, he's already been showing himself in spring. He's the guy with the monster high K rate in minor leagues. Last season, he had a combined 196 opponent batting average, pitching between AA and AAA. So obviously, he's got the strikeout stuff without having to throw that hard. He looked great in camp, minor league camp, in that minor league kind of instructional league type camp they were having before the spring season started. And obviously, he came out on fire pitching in a minor league spring game. So definitely keep an eye on Nate Lavender because he's one of those guys who's probably, okay, I won't say probably, but you would think he's projected to make a debut in 2024. You're always going to need pitching, so keep an eye out for a debut for Nate Lavender. Number 23, my favorite of all time at this point already, Wilfredo Lara. I've been just swarming the internet ever since I heard about him last spring. He's a he's a kid. He's 19 years old. Wilfredo Lara plays 6 to 7 positions. 6 to 7. I heard he has a hit tool. He's got speed. He's got power. He's only 19 years old. He's one of those like gems. He was a bit of a late signing for the IFA classes. So he didn't even sign like immediately as a 16-ish, 17-year-old kid. He signed a little bit late, not even necessarily his fault. Talked to some of the coaches about some of the circumstances and logistics. I believe it was somewhere around to the pandemic. So there was some things going on and things got delayed for him, but he's hit the ground running. For him to even be ranked 23, I'm really excited about it. I'd like to think he's going to go inside the top 20 by the end of this year. I absolutely have no idea where he's going to play defensively because he's played everywhere except for basically pitcher and catcher. Keep an eye out for Wilfredo Lara. Number 21, Calvin Ziegler. Here we go again with the pitchers that have had some injuries. Not a really lot you can say about Calvin Ziegler. Drafted pretty high, some high hopes. He's got some solid stuff. Been missing games off and on. So now we got to wait out another year. I'll try to get as many updates as I can, any kind of information I can get on guys like Calvin Ziegler during the year. But again, another talented guy that can do a lot for the Mets organization. Maybe start utilizing the pitching lab, see what he can get done from it. Number 21, they listed Jesus Baez. Kind of a younger guy. He pretty good walk rate. He had 19 walks to 28 Ks last year. The box scores are not sexy. I talked to some of the coaches. The coaches are still pretty excited about him. They say he has a lot of talent. So for now, I'm ignoring the 2023 box scores. I'm excited to see what he does in 2024. We'll have to assume it's going to be an infielder one way or another. So again, we got this cluster of so many guys. Curious now again, where do you even put Jesus Baez on the field? How does he see playing time and at what level? So let's keep an eye out for him. Number 20, Ronald Hernandez, one of the gems from those the trades. This is from the Marlins trade. when they required this young catcher, Ronald Hernandez. Seems to have a good hit tool, strong arm, really good, solid behind the plate. And by the way, he had more walks than Ks last year, so that's pretty interesting and fascinating, especially for a catcher. It's pretty cool for a catcher to have that kind of discipline. So he got the high OBP going. Pretty curious to see what Ronald Hernandez is going to do in the next year. But hey, you know what? You can never have enough catchers. There's even another one coming up real soon on this list. So keep an eye out for Ronald Hernandez. Number 19 on the list is Nolan McLean. Is that going to be our Ohtani? I don't really know, but he's the guy that was more of a two-way player coming out of college. He really played very sparingly and just basically got into a few games at DH after the draft. When I started asking about Nolan McLean, the main thing I was told from a pitching coach in the Mets organization was, buy stock in McLean. That's all he was able to say in the moment. I'm going to take that to mean let's hit the ground running with Nolan McLean because he probably has the goods, so invest in him now and believe in him now. So that's why I'm pretty excited with a guy like this with a very strong arm. I know Pipeline was a little concerned about what's going to happen with the hit tool. Is he going to have the right approach? As he kind of goes up the levels with his strong arm, is he going to be able to hit up the levels? If he's able to pitch up the levels, what do you do? It's going to be an interesting thing. Maybe obviously keep an eye on Nolan McLean's K rate, depending on how he's hitting during the year as well as pitching. That's going to mean a lot. Number 18, we have Tyler Stewart. Everyone knows my love and fascination with Tyler Stewart. I even interviewed him on the show. I love Tyler Stewart. He's got that 5-pitch mix that includes his cutter that's kind of new, taught to him by one of the pitching coaches last year. So again, hey, shout out Mets player development. I know a lot has been said about them, but here's a guy who learned something new from one of the coaches. That's kind of the point, right? He also went through the pitching lab. He's made some adjustments. My understanding, he already pretty much had a major league caliber slider last year, and it sounds like it's actually improved more of that sweeper slider that he's got going on now. So now he's adding some extra filth. Some of the player development has worked even more well for him. So look out for Tyler Stewart. Number 17, there he is, Giovanni Rodriguez. I've already been bothering all of you online about Giovanni Rodriguez. He literally just got signed as an IFA class kid. I've had some staff, some coaches, they basically described and implied that they felt, you know what, in their opinion, we feel we signed the number one player in this recent IFA class. That's the confidence they have in him. Is he going to be another Alvarez? I don't know. Is he going to hit more than Alvarez? Hey, if he has a higher hit tool, will he have the same power? Not really sure at this point if they're projecting him to have like Alvarez type 30 home run power from the catcher position. But I do know that he's an elite catcher. I believe he even got one of those minor league awards for defensiveness. So they loved his defense at the catcher position. So he's got a lot going for him. I had one of the scouting peoples. They said some things I won't even name because if I try to name certain player comps, it's going to blow people's minds. So I'll save that for maybe a future year. But you know what? As far as I'm concerned, if you want to fast forward about 2 years, I think even the Pipeline and other rankings may have him as high as the top 3 in the Mets organization. That's my, projection at this point. That's my ceiling for how high Giovanni Rodriguez can go. The next guy at number 16 is Alex Ramirez. I mean, hey, everybody knows my thoughts on Alex Ramirez. He kind of had a slow start to things, so that wasn't great. Last season did not go well for him. We all know this in the box scores. I just know that the talent is there. When I was asking one of the Mets staff last year, hey, what do you think of Alex Rodriguez? They basically just said, you know what, he's still young, he's still young. I know it's not a great excuse, but it was also implied by the staff that they still really like what Alex Ramirez has to offer. So that's why I'm so kind of excited about 2024. Even though obviously in hindsight right now, he's had a couple of really awesome spring games, so it makes me sound a lot easier to say it. But the coaches were still believing in him through last year. And he's only 21 years old. But you know what? The IFA kids, the clock is ticking. So I'm curious to see how his season is going to go and what direction the Mets want to go with him, depending on how he does at the end of the year. So I guess we'll see. Number 15 is Jacob Reimer. He's a very interesting young guy. He's one of those kids who was a teenager last year, so I can believe he's now 20 years old. I love his walk rate. Another one of those plate discipline guys. Like a Wilfredo Lara did really well. So the other guys like Ronald, the catcher, I really like the plate discipline of Jacob Reimer. Defensively, he played some third base and first base. I tried to watch him at both. I'm kind of definitely hoping he can stick more at third base. I think first base seemed like more of a kind of get him some action. Didn't seem as fluid when I was seeing it. I just, hopefully, Jacob Reimer stays at third base. That's going to be his best route and most value to the Mets organization. And I guess, too, it's also about the power. What kind of power is Jacob Reimer going to show going up the levels? I think it's going to be important, even for the stereotypical third base position anyway. Definitely want to see what kind of home run and doubles totals that he has this coming year. Number 14, Dominic Hamill. He's the consistency, man. I got to see it. I want to see the consistency in Dominic Hamill, who could be dominant. I swear, you look in the box scores every fifth or sixth day, you got Dominic Hamill either going 6 innings, 1 run, 11 Ks, or it's 3 innings, 4 runs, 4 walks. It's going to be fascinating to see, even for the pitching lab especially. Was the pitching lab made for guys like Dominic Hamill? Because I'm curious to see what kind of adjustments, what kind of mechanical things he can do and change. And I really, 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 really want to see how he's going to do in 2024. I'm even curious to know where he's going to start. Do they send him to AAA? Does he have to repeat AA? Because again, there's a big cluster of AA, AAA, and then the kind of those guys at the major league-ish level who may get sent back to AAA. So now I'm fascinated where he's even going to start. But wherever he is, the K rate's probably going to still be very high. I just want to know about the consistency and the command. Number 13 is like the mystery guy of sorts, because, hey, who needs to play after the draft, right? Brandon Sproat, who took the extra year, came back to the Mets anyway in the draft, can hit 98-plus miles an hour, and then he kind of doesn't really pitch, right? So I got some information on him, basically just saying he looked good in the minor league camp. I know that's the funny thing to say every spring is when a guy looks good, but they were touting some of his behind-the-scenes pitching and some live BP on the minor league side of things even during a bit more winter before spring started. There were some good things being said about him. So let's keep an eye on him. Number 12, the one, the only, the legend of Jeremy Rodriguez. The kid who came over, he was 17 years old, gets traded, comes to the Mets for Tommy Pham. All he does with the Mets organization in the DSL is he only slashed .422, .536, .711, and 1.247 OPS. Not bad. He's got to mean something, right? I mean, he was highly regarded in his IFA class when he was signed. Now he finds his way to the Mets. He just annihilated the entire affiliate while he was there for the team. So obviously, first things first, let's see where he's going to be in 2024. Does he come stateside? How's he going to start doing in the FCL in Low A? Long way to go for Jeremy Rodriguez, but why delay the hype, right? Number 11, another one of my favorites, maybe a bias since I interviewed him, of course, but Mike Vasil. The Pipeline has him ranked number 11 in the Mets system. Everyone knows I love Mike Vasil. He's a hard thrower. He's a hard worker. He's a team player. He's really a student of the game. He's one of those guys that really told me and told us on the show a ton of information about the pitching lab, how he adopted the information at the end of the season, how he attributed a lot of his player development, a lot of his off-season training was based on the information given to him by the data of the pitching lab. And there he is now in the Major League Spring game, putting in some work before being, officially sent back down. But who knows? Maybe he'll pitch again in the Major League Spring game anyway, even though you're sent over to the minor league side. But I expect a lot of things out of Mike Vasil. And even talking with a few people in the Mets organization, He already pitched at AAA last year. Kodai Senga is not going to break camp. So it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, he was sent back, but April, May, I'm really curious to see not only like will he debut, but like how soon Mike Vasil could debut for the Mets. I think he has what it takes. I think his command will be there. I think the fastball will be there. It's just mixing the pitches up, not trying to nibble at the corners, but he's a fascinating arm who might make his debut in 2024. All right, let's get into the top 10. And again, I'm kind of curious, but it kind of makes sense based on draft status, projections, and ceilings that Blades Hidwell, they have him ranked one ahead of Mike Vasil, which I'm perfectly okay with. Blades Hidwell has that like 97, 98 mile an hour arm. He's got some of that really filthy stuff. It's just a matter of, again, consistency. I think I just said this with Dominic Hamill, right? Doing it again with Blades Hidwell. How is it going to be the consistency? I also want to know what level he's going to start at in 2024. Do they jump him to AAA? Do they make him repeat because of the same situation of kind of clogged up kind of arms? That's another thing that I want to find out and know. Number 9, they ranked Kevin Parada, the guy everyone's given up on after 1 year. I know he put up like Babe Ruth numbers in college, so everybody was hoping he would just show up and hit like 30 home runs in the minor leagues. But I do know last year he kind of got hot. All right, he got really hot. I was talking to some coaches, talking to some other people who were basically telling me like, hey, Ern, I think he's going to be called up within like a couple of weeks as far as called up between high A and double A. They were saying it was probably pretty much a given. And then, of course, like a week or two later, he goes down, hits the IL, and then by the time he comes back, he did eventually get promoted to double A, but the season seems like it went a little bit off course. So I'm curious to see, obviously, what happens now in 2024. I also know defensively, we know that he wasn't throwing out a lot of runners. I did speak to some minor league pitchers who said, listen, man, Kevin Parada, he's a good guy. He calls a great game. So he has other tools. Is that he has some stuff in his tool bag, right? So, but obviously, first things first, we want him to hit. So hopefully 2024 is when the fireworks show up offensively for Kevin Parada. Number 8, another one of those OBP kids that we got from the Marlins. We got the catcher and we got infielder Marco Vargas, who they rank at number 8, who's still a teenager, had a lot of walks. He had 53 walks to 38 Ks last year between the Marlins and the Mets affiliates and organizations. He even stole some bases. Again, one of the kids, where's he going to play? It's already in the top 30, and there's kids outside the top 30 who all play the same positions as well. So obviously when you're ranked as high as number 8 by a very respected website, he's probably going to have precedence. He's going to have that priority. So let's see where they want to play Marco Vargas in 2024, around the infield, or do they give him outfield? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. Number 7, new kid, Colin Hook from the last draft. He played 3 infield positions in a few games last year. There's a lot of projectability in his talent. I want to see, again, I've been saying it now during this whole kind of segment, where do they play him? Do they keep moving him all around the infield? Do they try outfield? When I interview, DeAndre Smith, they have him now training in the outfield as well. So with a kid like this, highly ranked, do they get him moving around different positions? I love to see it. I want to see it. He's ranked 7th. Obviously, a lot of people still think highly of him just getting started. So I'm excited to see what he has to do. Number 6, Ronnie Mauricio, the guy who I probably thought and projected was going to be the starting third baseman opening day. But there's the injury. So here we go again, right, Mets fans? I still love everything about Ronnie Mauricio. And I know he's a good guy. He's motivated. There was some stuff being told about him last year, and I spoke to one of the coaches that was completely against everything that was being reported. They felt he was doing everything the organization asked of him last year, trying different positions. He was doing everything he could. So I'm still excited about Ronnie Mauricio. I want to see what can happen. Obviously, please get healthy. And then going into next year, What kind of competition can he give, and can he make it back to the Mets, like right to the major leagues? It'd be pretty exciting. Number 5, really high ranking for Christian Scott. It seems like he was already a really talented pitcher, very strong arm. I know some of the staff I was talking to last year, I was messaging them like, he just hit 98. And even they were not really shocked, but they were like, already? Because they were wanting him to kind of get back on track and back into cruise control. And he kind of hit a really, really, really hot spot last year, and it seems like he never let up. So now the excitement is there, the hype is there for Christian Scott. They have him obviously as the highest ranked pitcher in the organization, and you know what? Right now it's deserved. I'm really excited, and again, he might be one of those guys I'm talking about who's going to get repeat, who's going to get promoted to AAA. I'm wondering if they jump him and maybe have Christian Scott and Mike Vasil in the Syracuse rotation to break camp. That would be really cool and exciting because he might be one of the first arms up, which would be amazing. But first things first, you probably should definitely log some innings in AAA. Number 4, Ryan Clifford, the big power bat, the big bopper. Ryan Clifford, again, from the trades, the nice deadline moves that were made to where the Mets kind of bought themselves a bunch of top prospects, including Ryan Clifford. And here he is, ranked number 4 in the Mets organization. There's been a lot of projections of him being a top 100 MLB prospect type guy. I guess the main question is he's got a super strong arm, so you would love him in like right field, but can he stick in the outfield, or does he quote unquote have to move to first base? It's one of those things where it's like, okay, you end up there, it's fine, but as a minor leaguer, it kind of messes with things a little bit. Usually it could even mess with the rankings. So for him to be ranked this high, that's how highly regarded his offense is and his power is for a guy who may or may not even transition to first base, be so highly ranked anyway. So I'm curious to see it. Please, for the love of God, don't consider him Pete Alonso's replacement. Right now, Pete Alonso is still in the organization. I hope that he stays. But Ryan Clifford's going to be pretty fascinating to see what they do with him. Number 3, Luisangel Acuna. Seems to be the guy everyone wants to rant and rave about. I know in the Rangers organization, he had a higher OPS. The OPS dropped in the Mets organization, playing for the different leagues in AA. So everyone was like, oh, he's got no power. But skill sets all seem to be there. He runs like crazy. I like his leadership. I like some of his instincts that he was showing in games in AA for the Mets. So he has definite solid middle infield instincts. Maybe he's one of those guys who may have to be a second baseman or hopefully center field. Give him another shot in center field. Number 2, Drew Gilbert, the guy that a lot of people are super excited about. Again, from the trades, buying another top prospect. Drew Gilbert looks like one of those gamers, right? The gamer kind of grinder type guys. Looks like the power could be there. The defense is really solid. He could stick in center field, but if he moves to a corner outfield spot, it looks like it'll still be okay. So with that kind of versatility, it screams to me a guy who's probably going to debut in 2024 one way or another. I know there's some ifs on the entire Mets 26-man roster, and the outfield contains some of those ifs. But obviously there's a lot of health to hope for in the outfield on the major league side, but Drew Gilbert could be a quick call-up. And then, of course, the number 1 ranked prospect, who I agreed with, and I said he was number 1 pretty kind of early on at the end of last season, is Jet Williams. The young teenage sensation, I believe, is he 20 now? He's that kid who already at 20 years old, he wants to debut. I know he's confident. I heard a lot of good things about him last year. When he started slow in the beginning of the minor league season, I started asking, hey, what are you guys seeing in him? And the staff were basically saying all the metrics were showing all positive signs. So they weren't necessarily disappointed by the box scores, but it was kind of like, well, you want to see higher numbers in the box scores for your top prospects. But he basically just told me don't sweat the box scores because all of the metrics and the barrel rates, everything looked good. And the eye kind of like scouting they felt was very strong with him. And that's why I was projecting him to have a huge summer, which he did. So he deserves to be the number 1 ranked prospect in the Mets organization. I still honestly don't know if he'll debut. I know people are like, yeah, call him up right now, but I don't know about all that at 20 years old. But with that kind of plate discipline and that kind of speed, first things first, can we find him a position as well? Between him and Luis Angel Acuna, who's playing where? Who's going to play second? Who's going to play center field? I'm not really sure either one would be best suited at third base. So we got two positions, two young top prospects. By the way, Jeff McNeil still plays for the team, even though there was some concerns of stuff with him going on right now. So let's see. But hey, that's me. Tried to give a quick rundown. Probably spoke too fast, but is what it is. I'm a New Yorker too. I'm Irish and Italian. Moving my hands all the way. Hopefully you don't see it too much. But hey, that's the updates. That's the thoughts. That's the small amount of intel I can give on all the prospects that were ranked by MLB Pipeline. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you subscribe to my channel. And please continue to support me, support the channel, and support my segments and future interviews to come. Thank you.